All right, everybody. Welcome to an Esoterica live stream. I haven't feel like I haven't done one of these in forever, but I'm really glad to see everybody. Really glad to get some time to hang out, and really glad to open this in a little bit. It's really strange to get a trophy as an adult, but trophy it is, and so we'll open up the gold play button in a little bit, and yeah, celebrate rolling over a million subscribers, which I'll talk a little bit about in just a bit. But yeah, also welcome to the new set, the new studio, as much as it is. As folks may know, I've been in the process of renovating my office slash studio slash library slash whatever over now for the past 9 months, basically since I left for Egypt last year. I packed up in my entire library, basically my entire library, before I left for Egypt last year, which was in February. So in some sense, I've been doing this for a year, but it's basically finally done. There's a few more things that I need to do in order to wrap it up, but it's basically finally done. And so what you're seeing behind me is the new Esoterica studio, which I think when I'm recording actual Esoterica content, I'll probably be sitting down, so it'll look a little different. I've also transitioned to using a standing desk, which I have to say is an absolutely good decision. It's really great to be able to do most of my work standing, and yeah, and so actually just doing this live stream standing up is so much better than sitting down. And so got a new standing desk. I'll do a whole tour of this at some point when I talk about the office remodel, but it has been just a crazy process, and now it's finally done. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting back in here and recording, which I'll talk about upcoming content here on the channel in just a little bit. So but yeah, this is the new Esoterica office. I mean, you can kind of see it looks kind of the same. A lot of the same tchotchkes and stuff are still here. They added some of these cool distillation apparatus up there, and John D and Agrippa are still hanging out back there with Thoth, and all that. And you can, and again, also, I don't know if I can do this, but I guess I can lift this up with the standing desk, right? So literally the camera is going up, and you can see I have some antiquarian books up there as well, and some more antiquarian books down here. So that feels like I have a robot for a desk, and I kind of do have a robot for a desk, which is great. So at any rate, the office is done. We've crossed 1 million subscribers, so I'm quitting. No, definitely not. I don't think anyone would fall for that joke. No, I'm really excited for this next phase of Esoterica. I'm really looking forward to what the new year is going to bring. Looking forward to new content. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great year, and it's going to be some great content. And it's also not going to be so terribly exhausting as it was at the end of last year. I was just so eager to get over the finish line, as much as it is silly to get over finish lines, but I was so eager to get over the finish line of 1 million subs that I really worked myself in a way that wasn't super healthy for me or my family or for the ecosystem that I live in. And so I'm really looking forward to moderating that whole process and getting things back in a way that's productive, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. I was actually planning, hopefully, to get a content back going this week with a new episode, which I thought was going to happen, but didn't, and it didn't happen because basically the camera that I've used to film almost all Esoterica content over the last 5.5 years, that camera basically bit the dust. And it's serendipitous that it bit the dust literally during this period of sabbatical or whatever. And as I was talking to Patreon folks, that camera was already on its last leg when I got it 5.5 years ago. I don't know if folks would know this, but from filming, which is actually over there, which is weird to look over there and think that's where the Esoterica studio used to be. But where I was filming, I had to literally put marks on the floor. Otherwise, the camera just would not, it didn't have autofocus. So if I moved the camera at all, I had to totally have like my wife sit in the seat and me focus in on her in order to get the focus right, because otherwise the autofocus would just, there was no autofocus. The LCD on the back didn't work. It was just really it was a great starter camera. It really, it had a great image, but it died. And so I've been in the process, luckily, of one of the things I've been doing in the remodel is getting new audio and visual stuff. And what I did was I got a new camera, which I'm waiting for my good friend Tony to come help me set up. This is a new Esoterica camera. It's a Sony FX30. These are just fantastic cameras from what I understand. It better be fantastic for what I paid for it. But I'm going to be running the Sony FX30 for the new channel. So I'm super excited to get this set up. I don't know how to set it up. This camera could literally, the settings in there could literally be in Mandarin Chinese, and I would have a better chance of setting them up if then, because I don't really understand cameras at all. But at any rate, I'm looking forward to getting this set up with this new lens and getting the entire new Esoterica office up and running and getting content created again, because I'm pretty eager to get back to it. I mean, I think a lot of creators sort of work themselves with a bone and then they don't want to create anymore. And my experience is just the opposite. I'm extremely eager to get back to creating. I don't feel in the least bit burnt out, or I don't feel in the least bit like I want to step away from Esoterica after hitting this. In fact, I feel more eager than ever to get back to it. But if you're curious what the next episode of Esoterica is going to be about, it's going to be about the oldest book in the Americas. What is the oldest recoverable book from the Americas? And we'll be talking about that. So I'm looking forward to getting back into to that material and a lot more. I mean, I have episodes on Paul ready to go. I have episodes on Bernard of Clairvaux. Going to be doing let's see what I have over here. Bernard of Clairvaux. There's going to be doing an episode on Catherine of Genoa, who's a really important, interesting 16th century mystic. So it'll be some more of that stuff. So a lot of stuff coming, folks. So stay tuned. We have a lot of stuff coming here at Esoterica, and I'm really looking forward to getting that stuff done. What else do I have? I'm doing an episode on Trithemius, which I've been gunning to do for a long time. Not only am I doing an episode on Trithemius, I actually have a copy of Trithemius' Stenographia here. I have two copies, actually. Here's a copy from 1608, like sitting here on the Esoterica shelf behind me. So I'm going to be doing an episode on the Stenographia, which folks may know. The Stenographia was partially a grimoire and partially a mechanism by which to summon angels to rapidly transmit messages. And of course, it's famous for these great, beautiful these sigils and stuff. In fact, you probably know that John Dee actually copied out by hand from another manuscript his copy of the Stenographia. So we'll be coming back and doing an episode on the Stenographia, which I'm really looking forward to. May do a shelf tour if folks are interested in that, although I find those to be a bit ego tripping. I don't know. But anyway, I have another episode, another version of the Stenographia here. This is a 1621 Darmstadt edition, which is a little bit cleaner copy, but this one's neat because it also contains the defense of Trithemius by a fellow Catholic, which is an important thing as well. So, but yeah, looking forward to doing an episode on Trithemius and his theory of magic. So yeah, I may do another book tour. I did one actually when we crossed 100,000 subs, so maybe it makes some sense to do one and having crossed 1 million. But yeah, mostly I'm just here to hang out today. I'm gonna get back into doing Esoterica, actual real Esoterica content, not just live streams. Hopefully next week I'll have a new episode out for you guys, and then yeah, that's the big plan. But it's funny, I what I try to do also is do these live streams. I try to sort of look back on what was the previous content that we've done. And it's funny because it now, having taken a few weeks off, which I desperately needed to take a few weeks off, it just feels like a lifetime ago of having created content on the channel. So I was looking back on what was the content that I created before I did the last live stream. And of course, the last live stream was at Halloween, where we did our usual annual religion tube live stream, and that was looking back at that. But yeah, I look back to some of the content I've made since then, and I mean, I'm kind of shocked at all the stuff that we're able to crank out in that time period. I mean, one of the things that we were able to get done was the conclusion of the Merkava seminar, which is something I've been wanting to teach forever. I've been wanting to teach a really in-depth, really deep dive exploration of Merkava mysticism for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. And it's never, the opportunity's never presented itself. I've been able to do, one-offs on Merkava mysticism, a couple classes here and there, but never an actual deep dive into the Merkava mysticism. And thanks to the generous support of my patrons, we were able to pull it off. And it was just amazing to be able to do whatever it was, 15, 16 weeks of just incredibly diving into what I think is one of the most interesting and important forms of mysticism in the Western world, and really getting into the weeds of the material in a way that I feel like a lot of times when we encounter that material, we really don't get into the weeds of it. And I really was deeply honored, and grateful to be able to produce that seminar, and then be able to make that available for free for anybody who wants to do it. And it just, again, it's just it's part of what makes doing this job such an incredible honor, is that you get to take this material that has been often extremely neglected or suppressed or otherwise not taken seriously, sometimes hunted down and burned. I think about again, I can pull it off off the desk here. This copy of Trithemius, this book was banned. As soon as this book came out, it was banned. It was illegal to print this and to own a copy. And I'm able now to take a copy like this 1621 edition of Trithemius and make content available to anybody who basically has a phone, really. So, and the same thing as being able to dive really deeply into the material, and the Merkava mysticism was just really a blast. I mean, I love that stuff. Now I'm even in the very beginning phases of talking about maybe writing a book that's sort of an introduction to Merkava mysticism for lay people. There are a lot of really high level academic studies published by Brill. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of academic introductions to Merkava mysticism that I think are great, but I would like to make one that's a bit more popular. So maybe writing an introduction to Merkava mysticism that's a bit more accessible and a bit more I don't know, normal, because academics are not normal people. So something, not that anyone normal is going to be reading a book on Merkava mysticism, but at least if you're going to be weird, you're going to be weird in the best possible ways. So so yeah, definitely interested in doing that. But what else? And in addition to the Merkava seminar, it's crazy looking back on it. So the last thing that we did, the last live stream, just to go through the list of the content that we created here on the channel. And I say I really include you guys as part of that process. The Patreon community helps to inform what I do. What you guys are interested in helps to inform what I do. I may be writing and scripting and shooting and all that stuff, but at some level, this is a community funded, a community sponsored channel. And so I think of it as a we much more than an I. I feel like when we get drowned up in our I, there's a lot of ego tripping that goes on in that space, and I don't want to get involved in that. But again, look at the kind of content that we made on the channel. We've made everything from an episode on the origins of Dracula. That one came out on Halloween, and that was fun because, well, I think there's lots of content about Vlad Tepes on the internet, a lot of it really bad. One of the things that I noticed about so much content about Vlad Tepes so-called Vlad the Impaler, that I noticed online, was it was basically taking a bunch of 15th century propaganda and just repackaging it as if it literally happened that way, and not looking at any of the political or social or economic context that made Vlad, or Vlad Tepes, I suppose. And so it was my opportunity to take a look at the earliest documents that depict the atrocities or alleged atrocities committed by Vlad Tepes, and trying to actually sort out, should we believe any of this? What does the history of printing have to do with any of this? What is the history of the political economy of Central Europe in the 16th, in the 15th century? And so that was the thing that was really fun to me, is that as a person interested in early printing, I mean, again, I'm sitting here handling 17th century books. One of the really interesting, important things about that episode was looking at Vlad the Impaler as a product of early printing. That there would have been no Vlad the Impaler as we know him, at least as a historical character and a character that we all recognize at some level. He would not have existed as such without printing. And I think that all of that context really matters. And it was really great to make that episode. Also, it's one of those moments where you make content and you're really happy to get good comments. Everybody likes to get good comments on their content, but in some cases, it's the one comment that matters the most. And in that case, it was one of the principal authors of the Corpus Draculianum, who is working. He's sort of the lead face of that YouTube channel and of the work that's being done to codify all of the historical records about Vlad Tepes in the Corpus Draculianum. And it was really great to get a positive comment from him, because again, you can get all of the good comments in the world, and those make you feel good, of course. But it's when you get a good comment, a positive comment from someone who's literally the world's expert on that, and says, "Hey, you did a good job." That's what it really, that matters enormously to me. So it's great to get a comment from the folks at the Corpus Draculianum, that the episode was pretty good. So that's encouraging. Moving on from Vlad the Impaler, which is a very esoteric thing to say, we turned in and we did an episode on Asherah, which was an episode I've been wanting to make for a long time. One of the things that I never really realized about this channel, and one of the things that I really like about this channel, is it's allowed me to also not just focus on content in Western esotericism, but it's also allowed me to do some work in other, not strictly speaking Western esotericism elements, but in elements of history that just get neglected. And one of the areas of history that, in my opinion, just gets neglected is that we don't really study ancient Near East mythology. And I don't know, well, I don't know why we don't study ancient Near East mythology, but I have a feeling I know why. And I think the feeling I know why is because when you study ancient Near East mythology, and I'm not talking about just Babylonians and Sumerians, there's plenty of that mythology on YouTube as well. What I'm really talking about here is the ancient Near East vis-a-vis Canaan, the areas of Ugarit, Israel, Moab, Hittite a little bit, but the areas of the traditional folks that end up in the Hebrew Bible. And of course, the reason why we don't study that mythology is because once that mythology is studied and the Israelite mythology has to be put into the context of that mythology, some people get their feelings hurt. Their theological feelings hurt. And to me, that's just not how you do history. It's not how you encounter material. It's not how you try to understand our shared human experience or the ancient experiences of ancient peoples, especially peoples like the ancient Israelites. And so it's precisely by studying Canaanite mythology that we relieve ourselves of this huge albatross of religion at some level. And again, I say that as a religious person. I don't want religion to be an albatross. I want religion to be something that makes meaningful life about me, that makes my life meaningful. And if I do that at the sake of intellectual dishonesty, I'm not really willing to make that trade. I want to be intellectually honest and make it such that my mythology matters to me. And I think that we don't study Canaanite mythology because we're being intellectually dishonest. And so part of what I've really enjoyed doing here on the channel in the past several years is covering some of the ancient mythology of of Canaan. And so, of course, we've done episodes on Yahweh, but one of the things I'm really looking forward to doing is covering more of that. Now, I'm going to do an episode on El this year. I'm going to do an episode on Hittite mythology. Hittite mythology is never gets the cover it deserves. I mean, Hittite mythology is fascinating. In fact, it's our earliest attested Indo-European mythology. You know, everyone loves Proto-Indo-European studies. Everybody loves reconstructing stuff from Proto-Indo-European, and I do too. That stuff is cool. But we actually have a very ancient Indo-European society's mythology, right? It's the Hittites. And so I'm really looking forward to covering the Hittites and some of the texts that have survived about them. But at any rate, I want to. That's all a lazy windup to say that we did this episode on Asherah, and Asherah is a really interesting, complicated goddess, cultic object, something. And you know, and again, I really appreciate being able to study Asherah without having to do intellectual backflips to try to to justify why I'm covering this so-called pagan goddess, or wading into the waters of whether Asherah and Yahweh were consorts or something like that. So it feels liberating to me to be able to get into that mythological material in a way that I don't see a lot of other channels doing, really, and just laying out and saying, look, this is who El was according to the Ugaritic literature. This is how El appears in the Hebrew Bible. Or here's Anat, and looking at Anat, the fierce sister of Baal, or just looking at Baal and saying, if Israelite religion wasn't the dominant religion in the world, or one of the dominant religions in the world, right, in the form of Islam and Judaism and Christianity, what would we say about Baal? And you know, we're so precious about this Canaanite mythology. Man, people want to demonize Baal, and they want to inherit the demonized version of Baal from Christianity and Judaism. I say, let's just say all we had was text about Baal. What will we know about this deity? And so it's great to be able to go to that material in a kind of I don't know what the right way is. I wouldn't say unbiased, because of course I have biases. Everybody has biases, but something like a disciplined bias, right? Where I know my bias, I'm trying to negotiate for it and trying to make it clear, but also trying to do the work this material desperately deserves. And that's kind of what I want to do with it. So yeah, we did the episode on Asherah. I did another episode on spiritual alchemy, which is sort of an ongoing series that I've been working on, because I feel like in many ways this channel has heralded the new historiography of alchemy in a big way. I really belong to the school of the new historiography, and so I'm really championed the new historiography. We've had Lawrence Principe on the channel, and so I'm a real big fan of the new historiography. But on the other hand, I feel like what I've neglected is the actual history of spiritual alchemy. And what I mean, the actual history of spiritual alchemy, what I don't mean is the 20th century and the 19th century sort of romantic reinventions of alchemy via people like Atwood and Jung, which are ingenious in their own ways. Again, sometimes people think of me as a Jung hater. And I wouldn't so much describe myself as a Jung hater. But I disagree with Jung, and I think Jung's read of alchemy is historically incorrect. But what I wanted to do was actually go back and actually show when alchemy does take on a very specifically spiritual dimension in European alchemy. Of course, it existed in some strong sense back in Zosimus, and that got transmitted in some sense into the Islamic context, and things like the Brethren of Purity there in Baghdad, and some Ismaili esotericism, which I'm not an expert in by any stretch of the imagination. But a lot of that was not transmitted to Europe. And so a lot of that was not transmitted to Europe. And so Europe developed its own indigenous spiritualization of alchemy. And of course, that began primarily in the context of sort of heterodox Protestant theosophy. So it's been really fun to go to that material, because on the one hand, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm erasing the real history of spiritual alchemy, because that would be just the same danger of erasing the real history of the chemical side of alchemy. So I don't want anyone to feel like I'm doing that. And so it's been great to be able to turn my attention to the actual spiritual origins, spiritualized origins of alchemy in those heterodox Protestant circles. So that's also been a lot of fun. It's also been sort of a lazy wind up to eventually get to theosophy, which I'll be very honest. Theosophy, and I'm thinking here of the theosophy of Jakob Böhme. It's extremely intimidating. I feel like I have some handle on that material. But in the same way that the Pistis Sophia is probably the most intimidating text of antiquity, is it? It's the most intimidating text like that. I think the most intimidating text of antiquity in many ways from an intellectual point of view is probably the Parmenides. Plato's Parmenides is probably the most intimidating text of antiquity like that. Although some of the later Neoplatonists get pretty tough. Proclus is pretty tough. The elements of theology are pretty tough. But at any rate, Jakob Böhme is just a beast. I mean, that's just like esotericism on beast mode. And so getting through the Aurora and getting through his other works, which are voluminous, I mean, a huge amount of literature, is extremely hard. So, but anyway, it's all in some ways the theosophy stuff, or rather the spiritual alchemy stuff, has been a lazy wind up to eventually getting into theosophy, specifically the theosophy of Jakob Böhme. That's also true of Paracelsus as well. So yeah, some spiritual alchemy stuff. And we covered the Hermetic Demiurge. Again, this is part of a long-standing process on the channel where I have like 5 different series going at once, which I knew was going to happen eventually on the channel. But one of the series that we have going on the channel is a history of the Demiurge, because for whatever reason, I think it's given the popularity of simulation theory or the Matrix, or I don't know what it is. But not only has Gnosticism made a huge comeback, is not the right word. There's a lot of interest in Gnosticism, and there's a lot of interest in the Demiurge. This concept of the Demiurge is really fascinating to people. And one of the things that I've noticed about the discourse around the Demiurge is it's also very badly informed. For instance, people will say things like, the Gnostic Demiurge is evil. Well, the Valentinian Gnostic Demiurge isn't evil. I mean, the Sethian one is, but the Valentinian one's not. Also, lots of other people had demiurges that aren't evil. There's something like a demiurge in Hermeticism. There's something like a demiurge in Judaism. We'll see what the next episode in this series is going to be, I think, on the Jewish demiurge. Actually, we're going to be focusing on the Logos as demiurge. So we'll cover Philo, the Gospel of John, and Origin, right? So that's sort of the Logos Demiurge. And of course, the Logos Demiurge isn't at all malevolent. And in fact, the Logos Demiurge in all of them is Christ. So I think a lot of the discourse around the Demiurge is really badly done. It's just really flat-footed. And so what I've wanted to do is look at the Demiurge and show that this concept of the Demiurge is extremely complicated. That the Demiurge in Pythagoras, or the Demiurge in Plato, or the Demiurge in Sethian Gnosticism, or the Demiurge in whatever, these are all vastly different concepts of the Demiurge. And so it's been a lot of fun coming through that. But at any rate, we did one on the Hermetic Demiurge, which is a very complicated character, because in many ways, as you probably know if you watch the episode, in some Hermetic texts, there's no admission of a demiurge, but in other texts there is. So it seems like the Hermeticists can't quite agree about if there is a demiurge, and if there is a demiurge, what is it? So in some texts we have the solar demiurge, and in other cases we have a different kind of demiurge. At any rate, that was a cool episode to do on the demiurge, because again, we're taking this concept, which I feel like gets a lot of play in the cultural zeitgeist, or on the internet, or on YouTube, or whatever, and it just often gets very badly done. I think it's done in a very flat-footed way. And so the reason why we're doing multiple deep dives on the demiurge is because I want to encourage people, and I want to elevate the discourse around these topics, so that we're not using these topics in a flat-footed, intellectually lazy way. Because the truth of the matter, at least to me, is that ancient peoples were sophisticated, ancient peoples were smart, ancient peoples were nuanced, ancient peoples had all of the nuance and all of the depth of thinking that we do, perhaps much more even. And I think that they deserve representation, correct representation. And I think that if we just flatten out, right, an idea like the demiurge, and say, yeah, it was all the same, we're doing a deep harm to history, and we're doing a harm to those people, because it's as if those ancient people all agreed, which they didn't, and it's as if they were all simple minded or something. I don't know. So I don't know. I find that when the intellectual discourse is very poorly done, that's usually that's usually a witness to the fact that we're just not really doing our due diligence to respect ancient peoples and ancient people's wisdom. So that's the kind of thing that I want to make sure we're doing around here. Um, Next episode, yeah, we did one on an episode on Lilith, which I'm always happy to be able to do something on Lilith. And this is also a place where I think the discourse around Lilith is often I don't know, it's not intellectually dishonest. I think it's just intellectually not as deep as it could be. And often you'll see things like oh, Lilith was a goddess that was demoted and demonized. Well, that's not really true. That didn't happen that way. There were Lilu gods; those certainly existed for the Sumerians, but Lilith as an entity, as a singular entity, was never a goddess in any mythology that I know of. And often we also see people take texts that were satirical and then end up taking them literally, um, which um, which there's a principle about that if you don't make something very clear, it'll eventually be, if you don't make satire very clear, it'll eventually be taken seriously. Um, whose law is that? Someone in the comments will know. But the Lilith story, the famous Lilith story of Lilith being the first wife of Adam, the Chava Harishon, the first Eve. Um, this idea that story is meant to be taken literally is a bit silly if you take a look at the context. And of course, the context is that story is developed in the alphabet of Ben Sirah, which is a joke. The whole point of the alphabet of Ben Sirah is to make fun of rabbinical nonsense, and they invented whoever wrote that invented that story to make fun of people, to make fun of the rabbis. And so because people read that story out of context, they don't read the story in the context of the book in which it's in, which is a hilarious book, by the way. Because you read it out of context, it takes on this other life. And I think that on the one hand, of course, the death of the author, and once you write something, people are going to take it ever how they take it. Of course, that's true. But on the other hand, it just means that I think that if you're going to do that, know you're doing that, right? If you're going to take a joke seriously, you should know that it was a joke first. Because if you take a joke seriously and you didn't know that it was a joke, that's not a good look. um, at least it doesn't seem to be a good look to me. And so what I want to do with the Lilith episode is not discount anyone's belief in Lilith or discount her as a representation of feminine power and feminine the divine feminine or anything like that. I can't do that. I'm literally a guy on the internet. I have no ability to take away anything from anybody. But what I do want to do is that for folks who take that story seriously, I just want to introduce them to the context. And the context, of course, there is that the alphabet of Ben Sirach is sort of a joke. And this happens over and over and over again in the history of Western esotericism, which I find to be sort of a funny thing. It's Lilith in the alphabet of Ben Sirach. It's the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum in Johann Weyer was originally meant to be an expose. And that one's a little bit more complicated. And the Lilith one's also a bit complicated, but with Johann Weyer, that one's complicated because he's actually taking material from actually taking material from grimoires and then publishing it to show that it's ridiculous. It's really an expose, and he's doing that in the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum, which I have here actually. Here's a copy of Johann Weyr's opera Omnia, the complete works of Johann Weyer. Um, Unfortunately, it's missing the frontispiece, which has his picture, but I find the Cinemarchia Daemonum real fast. It's in here somewhere. But at any rate, this is the opera, but it has it in here. But at any rate, that's an example where, again, something as a joke was taken literally by the author of the Lesser Key of Solomon, and of course that becomes a very important grimoire in the history of that material. I think the other one maybe that's a good example is the Simon Necronomicon. The Simon Necronomicon was almost certainly invented by Peter Levenda as a kind of test, right? It wasn't meant to be taken as a literal grimoire, and eventually it got taken as a literal grimoire. So, but at any rate, those are examples where this has happened in the history of Western esotericism, and I think it's a bit comical. At any rate, yeah, it was great to do the episode on Lilith, and I'm sure I'll come back to her at some point for some other reason. She's perennially interesting to folks. And then the last episode that we did before I went on a little bit of a hiatus was an episode on, again, this is the kind of stuff that I love to do. This is sort of the 1-2 punch of Esoterica, is that I'll do an episode on Lilith that'll be relatively accessible and relatively popular. I think it'll do well with the algorithm and all the stuff that you have to do to be the all-seeing, all-dancing monkey of YouTube. But you know that the Lilith will do well on the algorithm, so you do an episode on Lilith, and then I goad you in, and then I hit you with something really obscure, which of course in this case was an episode on Urzo of Salerno, who died sometime around 1220. So he's living just at the end of the 12th century Renaissance. And so the episode on Urzo of Salerno was really fun because, one, I think most people have never heard of Urzo Salerno. He has, I think I said in the episode, his Wikipedia article is probably, well, I shouldn't say now, maybe someone's expanded it since then, but you're talking about a Wikipedia article of 3 sentences. And sometimes I'll see on Reddit, or sometimes some people will critique me and say, oh, Sledge at Esoterica, he just repeats stuff from Wikipedia. I'm like, if I repeated stuff from Wikipedia, that episode would have literally been 3 seconds long. I would have just read the 3 sentences from about Urzo, but I didn't do that. What we did was we actually go and look at academic articles. We looked at manuscripts, right? I actually went the manuscript that I was able to find is actually in the Munich library, the big Munich State Library, which, by the way, is the same place that has the same library that has CLM 849, the Munich Necromancer's Handbook. But at any rate, I was able to find a really good scan of Urzo of Salerno's of texts, and able to actually work on it, translate some of it, read it, and really make I think a cool episode about how incantations work. And so it was great to be able to do an episode on Urzo of Salerno, and I think, again, really do some esoteric stuff where we go to the history of this material and show not only do people believe in incantations, they believed in incantations for very rational reasons. And I think this is, again, a part of why I like doing this work, is because we have these stereotyped understandings of what medieval people were up to. That there's just some wizard sprinkling random stuff in a pot and chanting things. These are just completely wrong understandings, and they're stereotyped jokes about how medieval people thought or how ancient people thought, and we need to disabuse ourselves of that. It's just not fair or kind to historical people to treat them as a stereotype joke. But rather, what we do is we can go to their actual material, we can look at it, and we can steel man them, right? We can put ourselves in their circumstances, in their historical context. We can put ourselves in their head to some degree, and we can ask ourselves what is perhaps one of the most important questions we can ask about other people. How do they make sense? Right? Like when I look at it across the table to another person who's different than me. I mean, Urzo Salerno is a very different person to me. And I'm absolutely not a 13th century Christian person. But if I can look across the table and think, okay, how does this person make sense? Right? I don't have to agree with them. I don't have to follow their metaphysics. I don't have to get down with their politics or whatever. But if I can ask myself, how does this person make sense? Then I can begin the process of having a relationship. And then we can really begin doing history. Then we can really begin understanding these people. We can begin doing philosophy. We can build relationships even now. And so I'm much more interested in trying to make these people make sense. I go read the Valentinian Gnostics or the Sethian Gnostics, especially. I don't agree with the Sethian Gnosticism. I don't find that dualism worldview. Um, I don't find it convincing in the least, and I think objectively it's a bad worldview. But at any rate, it's not my job to judge them. It's not my job to think, oh, let me make some arguments about why the Sethian Gnostics are wrong. In fact, I don't want to do that because that's not my job. My job is not to editorialize about them. My job is to understand them. And why would they think that? Right? Because they do make sense. There is a context in which it makes sense. There is a metaphysics in which it makes sense. There is a worldview or a theory of salvation in which that kind of dualism makes sense. My job is to do that work, right? And so yeah, again, going to Urzo Salerno is a great because it's just it's a view into medieval magic in a way that I think most people, yeah, most people I think would be a bit lost to even know anything about Urso of Salerno. So, so yeah, a great one to be able to do that one. And yeah, and then we rolled over this milestone, this million subscriber milestone. And it's just, I have to say that I'm as shocked as you are. I had no idea when I started this channel 5.5 years ago that now, I would be, there would be 1 million people click the subscribe button to this channel. And I just can't express how thankful I am to have the job that I do. I can't express how grateful I am to be able to serve a community of seekers and learners and educators, and be able to be among people of such of such just of such a high caliber, and just being able to meet all these amazing, wonderful people. And so it's just been, it's just been wonderful. Been wonderful. I've just been absolutely blown away by the degree of support that I've gotten. I've been blown away by the relationships I've made with other creators and other people in the sort of the ecosystem. Yeah, it's just been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. And so yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to have reached this milestone. I don't want to be falsely modest, but it's like, how did this ever happen? And it's fantastic. It did. And I'm looking forward to the future, folks. This is a place where I'm looking forward to more intellectual curiosity. I'm looking forward to doing new kinds of material. I think that, I just did a, excuse me, I just did a survey for Patreon supporters, where, it was a really in-depth survey. So we went through, I think it probably had 20-30 questions, and learned a lot from Patreon supporters about sort of the direction they want to see the channel go, like stuff they think that's going well, some stuff that they would like to see changed. It's a lot, and so I'm looking forward to introducing some new material on the channel. For instance, one of the things I want to do is, I want to start doing some more just general pedagogy stuff. I think one of the things that I get a lot of questions about is like, how do you study a book? Like, how do you study? Because I don't know about you guys, but I know that a lot of people are suffering from real difficulties with focus, with being able to focus on one thing very deeply, and that's a skill, right? We have everything in the world trying to take that away from us. Every single thing is trying to take that away from us. The YouTube shorts and TikTok and Instagram scrolling and doom scrolling and shallow conversations and just shallowness, right? Just sort of a shallow level of, that you can read Wikipedia article and there's some sense in which now you're an expert, right? I think that we're suffering from lots of things in our society. One of which is a kind of a shallow intellectual life. And for me, my life is all about being a mile deep and an inch wide. And that comes with its own sacrifices. Don't get me wrong. But I really want to be doing more to encourage people. I don't help people because I can't help anybody. At the end of the day, you got to do the work. That's your own damn responsibility. Um, but what I can do is encourage. What I can do is show you how I do it. And maybe that will inspire you or give you some tools by which to deepen your own intellectual curiosity, your own reading techniques, your own studying techniques, things like that. So I want to do some more pedagogical stuff. I want to do some more philosophical material. My PhD, as you guys know, is in philosophy. And so I want to do some more specifically philosophical work, especially as it intersects with the history of Western esotericism, which, despite what you would learn in a philosophy program, is a lot. There is no history of Western philosophy that is separate from the history of Western esotericism. Esotericism has always been bound up in philosophy, and philosophy has always been bound up in esotericism and in mysticism, going back to Parmenides, going back well before that. And so I'm looking forward to doing some more philosophical stuff, a lot. I'm going to have an episode sort of coming out at some point soon, where I want to talk about the future of the channel. And part of how I'm doing that is that I've sent out a survey to Patreon subscribers. And if you want to shape the future of the channel, one, you can just let me know what you think, and I'll take it as seriously as I can, obviously. But if you really want to shape the future of the channel, become part of our Patreon community, you can take the survey. And what I'm doing is taking all the data from the survey, and I'm going to be literally making we're having a town hall just in a couple of weeks. And that town hall is going to be, how do I take all of the material from the survey? How do I take my vision for the channel? And how do I take all the other information and ultimately, point a path forward after this milestone? Because I don't want to become stagnant. I don't want the channel to become stagnant. I want to keep doing what's working, and also want to be introducing different material. And so, yeah, so I'm going to be doing that as well. So again, if you want to support the channel and also shape the direction of the channel, make sure to check out our Patreon, and you can see the survey there. But in short, I think I said this on my thanks video once we crossed the milestone, the million mark, is that the big thing that's going to change on the channel is that we're going to be making a little bit less video content. And the reason for that is I just can't keep up the pace. Frankly, I don't know how I kept the pace up this year, or just the length of the channel. I literally released, I had a kid during this whole thing. And I never took any paternity leave, right? Most jobs that are good jobs, most jobs give you parental leave of some kind. I never took a week off when I had a kid. I kept grinding. And I kept grinding because I believe in this project. I kept grinding because I like the work. I kept grinding because it also kept me sane, having a newborn plus another kid in the middle of a pandemic. So, it was the kind of thing where I was working at a pace that was unsustainable for me, unsustainable intellectually, because, if you keep grinding that fast, your brain gets tired, your soul gets tired, your eyes glaze over, you're not able to put the same kind of rigor into the material if you're working that hard all the time. And secondly, it just wasn't sustainable for my family. When you're working that hard, teaching a very in-depth Merkava mysticism seminar and then cranking out content every week, it's impossible. It's just, you can't keep up the level of quality, and you can't keep up that level of quantity. Something has to go. And after 5.5 years of doing it, I can tell you what has to go. And what has to go is quantity. Quantity is something I'm willing to adjust, right? I'm willing to adjust the amount of material that comes out of the channel. And so we're going to go down to like 2 episodes a week. But what I'm not going to sacrifice is quality. There's no way I'm going to say, you know what I want to do? I want to just want to pump out a bunch of like shorts and other stuff, that's Wikipedia level. I'm never going to do that. I'll quit before I do that. I'll quit. So what I've decided, like I said, is to go down to 2 episodes a month, and a live stream. Which, if you think about it, it's not much of a change, right? It's not much of a change. And I know that a lot of YouTube channels will hit a million and say disappear or whatever, or they'll go on some kind of hiatus and produce 1 episode or 3 episodes a year. I'm not doing that. And I'm not doing that for lots of reasons, but one of the reasons why I'm doing that is because I don't want to do that because I'll go crazy. I I do not do well with unstructured time. I like my time very structured. That's a personality trait or defect that I have, and esoteric helps me to structure my time, and so that's the kind of thing that I'd want to do. So yeah, what I'm not going to do is sacrifice quality, but I do need to make an adjustment in terms of quantity, and that quantitative shift means that I don't get burnout, and it means that I don't sacrifice quality to you guys, which is, again, at the end of the day, that's what matters to me, is how I'm serving my community. And how you serve your community is by taking care of yourself, doing what you need to do to be healthy, doing what you need to do to have your mental health in good shape. Because we talk a big game in this country about mental health, but it's a joke, really. Um, and we don't take it seriously. I mean, again, if I broke my leg, people would be like, "Oh yeah, you should take a week off." Like, that's bad. But if someone's like, "I'm having a pretty severe depressive episode," they're like, "Oh, that's not real. Just smile and be happy." Um, yeah, but taking care of your mental health and that stuff really, really matters. So that's the only really big change. I think the other big change that's going to happen is that at some point in the next month or two, I'm going to be bringing on some admin help because I need help. I can't do this. I can't continue to do all of this on my own. I mean, it's just like folks have no idea what it's like to run a YouTube channel by yourself when you're the scripter, the editor, the live streamer, the person on the talking head, everything. And so it's gotten to the point now where there's no team here. I was watching one of the episodes by Veritasium, and Veritasium has like a huge team of people, and of course they make incredibly cool content. But one of the things I'm going to have to do is bring on an admin to help me with some of this stuff, just because I can't keep track of it. And yeah, I wish I could bring on an admin golem. I'd like Solomon Ibn Gabirol, who had the golem housekeeper. So I'm going to bring in an admin to help me out, and also what I'm going to hopefully do is get them to be also making some shorts, because I do think there's a lot of cool nuggets of stuff in old content, right? One of the problems with YouTube is that YouTube never promotes old content. I try to think about Esoterica as a library, right? And in a library, you're seeing everything at once. You're seeing all the books at once. But in YouTube, you're seeing the latest thing being shown to you, and the latest thing being shown to you is not, that's not all I've done. I've done hundreds of episodes, 400 episodes of Esoterica, and the algorithm just doesn't show them to people. And so unless you're specifically looking for blah, 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 the Dervini papyrus, because, there's a lot of people out there looking up the Dervini papyrus. And so you're not going to find my episode on the Dervini papyrus, which is one of my favorite episodes that I've done on the channel. And so what I'm going to be doing is getting my admin to basically be mining out of old episodes nuggets that become shorts, and those point back to those old episodes. So it's basically, yeah, it's someone saying it's like footnotes to previous work. Absolutely. It's like a trailer. It's like a, hey, like there's an episode about, I don't know, the Dervini papyrus, or there's an episode about this thing in alchemy. Here's a cool short that's kind of a preview for it, and go watch the whole video. So I'm going to be focusing not on making shorts, um, aside from antiquarian book stuff. I'm going to keep doing those because I like to do those. Because I think people just like to see old books, and I do. I love seeing old books, and also, like, who doesn't like old book ASMR, right? Like, you get an old book like this Stenographia, or even better. I'm sure this one would be even better. This is the collected works of Abelard. I just got this in. This is a collected works of Abelard, including his famous letters with Eloise. This is from 1616. So this is a collected works of Abelard. But yeah, I mean, who doesn't like, you know, the great sound of the old book? And I wish I could somehow translate the smell of these old books. They're very eminently sniffable. I would highly encourage you, if you ever come to my house and you want to sniff the books, don't ask. You can just sniff at will. Just don't sneeze on them. Um, but yeah, I want to keep making some shorts around book content. But yeah, I want to make some shorts that are basically adverts for previous episodes because I think that the content really matters, and yeah, and I want to end up um, yeah, I want to end up doing that. So yeah, bring on admin to help me out. That's the kind of thing that I really need help with, because again, you can't do it by yourself. And one of the quickest ways to burn yourself out is to believe the lie that you can do it all yourself. Arnold Schwarzenegger has a great speech about this, and you can say what you want to about Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he has a great speech about how he's not a self-made man. And I am not a self-made man of any stretch of the imagination, and I'm also not a person who can do this by himself. And I think admitting that you need help is one of the bravest things that you can do, whatever the help you need is. Because we live in a society that, at least in America, deeply frowns upon the idea that you can't just pull yourself up by your bootstraps or whatever nonsense stuff that is, as if you made the bootstraps. But yeah, this is a place where I'm going to need some help, and it'll be great to bring on an admin to do that work. So, all right, folks. Well, let's get to it. Let's open this thing, huh? You want to? So here's what you get in the mail from YouTube. I blanked out my address this time because last time I didn't blank my address out, and my best friend Nathan left a call me. I was like, "Hey, just FYI, you just like live streamed to the world your address." I'm like, "Well, damn it!" Shows how much of an amateur I am at this, folks. But at any rate, this is what you get in the mail from YouTube when you get 1 million subscribers, and it's not even in the mail. It's I got it through UPS, and I like how UPS they even put the sticker over the YouTube thing, so it's kind of funny. They kind of like handled it poorly too, so it's kind of like scratched up or whatever. We'll see how it is inside. All right, folks. So let's open this. Let's open this grown-up trophy. I say grown-up trophy, but there's like 8-year-olds who open boxes of Legos and have more subs than I do. But at any rate, let's open up this thing and see what we have inside. Can I do this on the screen without hurting myself? Let's see. Do I have something cool I can open it with over here? Yeah, I got something cool I can open it with. Not just scissors. That's boring. Let's open it with this. You folks know what this is? This is a bayonet from a Mosin Nagant. So if it'll kill a fascist, it'll open a YouTube box. All right. So there we go. It's very pokey. It does the job well. All right. So last bit of tape here with the Mosin Nagant. Because how could I even open this with like something as boring as just a pair of kitchen shears? A Shonda. Let's open it with a Mosin Nagant bayonet instead. And some folks have pointed out the fact that I have a Mosin Nagant oil can there in the back, and that's true. All right, so I think we have it open now. If I can avoid poking my eye out with this bayonet. All right, the opening. Ta-da! No. All right, we'll take off the protective film. We have a little card here. Congratulations on your subscriber milestone. We are honored to take part in recognizing your achievement and want your experience to be exceptional. My experience is being exceptional. This award was inspected and packaged with great care by Rick. Rick, thank you, Rick. If your award was damaged during shipping or you have any questions, please contact us at this email. Well, Rick, I'm glad that you want me to have an exceptional experience, and I'm having an exceptional experience. Thank you, Rick. All right. Got the letter from Neil Mohan. Let's read this before we. This kind of feels weird putting this gold thing on top of a 400-year-old book, but here we go. All right, it says, here's the letter. You did it. One mission, one channel, and one more thing. 1 million subscribers. Congratulations. You may have started with just a few viewers. I started with exactly 0, like everybody starts with, exactly 0. But your voice, passion, and creativity have now touched the lives of people around the world. I hope that's true. And the community you've built is enriched by the stories you've shared as you bring people together. I hope that's true too. To honor this milestone, we're proud to present you with the Gold Creator Award. We hope this special recognition will remind you just how much you mean to so many. Every day, you're redefining how content is created and watched, one voice and video at a time. It's a privilege to be part of your journey. We can't wait to see what you do next. Yours sincerely, Neil Mohan, YouTube CEO. I got a letter from the CEO of YouTube, guys. Nope, it's a form letter. It's cool though. It's nice paper too, nice cardstock. As a person who works with books, old books a lot, I'm pretty about like good paper, and I will say this is actually pretty good paper, and pretty nice cardstock, and so great. All right, so a letter from the CEO, the demiurge for sure. He's definitely the demiurge. All right, folks. Well, here it is, carefully wrapped in plastic. What's this? Oh, my team. I can email and get my team their own creator button because I have a team. Yes, I have 50 people working behind me to do this. All right, folks. Ta-da! All right, let's take it out of the plastic. They've shrunk them down, by the way. They used to be much bigger. They used to be like the twice the size or something than the silver play button, but they shrunk them down. So I didn't manage to get a million subscribers by the time that I got this one. But there it is, folks. You can see stuff in the reflection. I don't know if you can see. Whoa, that's weird. At any rate, there it is, folks. Presented to Esoterica for passing 1 million subscribers. And I like the fact that it says presented to Esoterica and not to me. It's not presented to Justin Sledge. And the reason why I like that is because Esoterica is not me, right? It's not just me. I'm a part of it, and I'm doing a lot of it. But what we've built, as a community of people, as a community of learners, as a community of educators, as a community of people who are taking topics in Western esotericism and giving them the importance they deserve, giving them the coverage and the analysis and their part in history. I like the fact that it doesn't say my name, because at the end of the day, what I'm doing is just part of the equation. And this is really a testimony not just to the work I've done, but to the work of lots of people. It's a testimony to all the people that I cover on this channel, right? When I pick a book up by Trithemius, there's no esoterica without this guy, right? There's no esoterica without this guy. This is I rest on his shoulders. I rest on the shoulders of Agrippa and all these other books around me. And so at the end of the day, it's to this content, and the content is ultimately what matters. I'm super happy and blessed to be a conveyor of that content, but I think it's important it doesn't say my name on it, because at the end of the day, what really matters is not Justin Sledge or whatever. What matters is Esoterica, and this as this conduit, as a means of doing community education, as a means of inspiring people to study more, to enrich their spiritual life, to have better Dungeons and Dragons games, to write a better novel, or whatever reason you watch this channel. Like, that's why this stuff matters. So I'm super happy, pumped to have this. It's great. It'll go on the shelf. And I'm really grateful, and I'm really great to pass this icon, this mark. But at the end of the day, what matters is us. What matters is doing this, and I'm super happy to have it, and I can hear the Final Fantasy victory sound, the Final Fantasy victory music playing in my head as we speak. Um, so there we are, folks. You know, I don't think I'm going to put it on the set because it's kind of garish. I've never been a gold kind of guy. I've always been a silver kind of guy. So I don't think I'm going to put it on the Esoterica set. But I know I did put the silver one on there because I like the silver better. But I'm not going to put it on the set. But at any rate, there it is, guys. Thank you. Thank all of you for getting the channel here. And thank you all for at some level, not at some level, in a really profound way, showing that the obscurity of this material is not a reason for folks to be disinterested in it. That so often what I get told is, no one's interested in that stuff. Why would you do that? Why study this material? It doesn't matter. And I think that what we've shown by getting this channel to 1 million subscribers is that it does matter. That this material does matter, and it does deserve the attention that that careful scholarship requires. And it matters for reasons it matters because it's an important part of our history. It matters because it's an important part of people's spiritual lives. It matters because it can make a good D&D game. It's not for anyone to judge how it matters, but there's no doubt about the fact that it does matter. And I think that anytime someone says, "Oh yeah, why do you study all that weird stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's not just me, bro." Right? That there's 1 million people who hit a button for whom this matters. And so I think that in many ways it's a testimony to the fact that this material deserves more scholars, and the fact that it's that we need more scholars. We need more Angela Pukas, and we need more of me. We need more tons and tons of more scholars and tons of people doing this material in public settings, right? Because it doesn't matter. I shouldn't say that. It's not true. It's not enough that we have scholarship occurring in academic settings. That's great. But how many people are going to pack their bags, save their money, and move to Amsterdam to get a degree in this material? It's simply not going to happen for the vast majority of people. Most people, and at least in this country, are struggling to get food on the table. They're struggling to get their car fixed. They're struggling to do basic stuff, right? Like, people don't have the money. They don't have the resources. They don't have the ability because they have a life and kids and all kinds of other things. They can't just pack their bags and go do this stuff. So we have to find a way. Scholars have to find a way of making this material and all academic material accessible to the public, because this is part of the reason why people have lost faith in academia, in expertise in general. Part of the reason why is because academia is not reaching common people. It's not talking to common people. It's not accessible to normal working people. And I think that at the end of the day, if academia wants to be irrelevant, people are going to turn against it. And it's not because what they're doing is irrelevant. It's because they're not making it accessible. It can be important, and it can be true, and it can be groundbreaking and revolutionary. And if it's not accessible, then why should anyone care? How is anyone going to feel anything other than resent if they have to pay $50,000 to go study Plato? It's just that's not an environment we need to be fostering. We need to radically transform academia such that at the end of the day, people can access this material, and they can access it on their own terms. They can access it as working class people on their phones. Again, it just makes me crazy. And so again, what this says to me, right? What this says to me is that people will come. People will support you. People will subscribe. They'll watch. They'll comment. They'll support you on Patreon, whatever, a super chat, whatever. But they will do that if you meet them where they're at. And you can elevate them, and you can help them elevate themselves. You can't elevate anybody. No one can do that. You can only elevate yourself. But you can encourage people, you can inspire people, and you can give people the tools by which to better themselves and to deepen their own spirituality, their own intellectual life, or whatever. And people are hungry for that. I think that that's true. I think that's the reason why there are so many successful academically oriented YouTube channels. But at the end of the day, we have to get more folks on this sort of public scholarship public scholarship train. And it's not just esotericism; it's everything, right? Again, I don't think that mathematics is boring or hard inherently. Mathematics is difficult. Western esotericism is difficult. Like think about how much languages and stuff I have to study. It's hard, sure, but it's all about how you approach it. And if you approach it pedagogically in a way that alienates people, of course they're going to not like it. But everybody we've ever met who says, "Oh, I don't like math," well, what they don't like is how they got taught math, how they got beat over the head with it. And so I feel like that we need a whole different layer of scholarship and public facing scholarship. But you already know that because I preach that gospel all the time. But the truth of the matter is, get used to it because I'm not going to stop preaching it because it's not changing, and until it begins to change, and I'm going to keep preaching it because I'm a deep believer that civilization stands and falls on education. It stands and falls on education. Yeah, you can have at the end of the day, if you want to have a good life and a good civilization, you need an educated population, and I think that is we do that through public facing scholarship because I don't expect any working class person to go into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to study what I do because I want them to be able to access it right here on YouTube for free, right? With no barriers, no paywalls, no nothing. And I'm going to keep doing that until I go broke. I'm going to keep doing that until I go broke because I'm going, then I'll join the rest of everybody else who's broke. Because I think that it matters. I think it matters. All right, folks, that's the trophy. Let me grab some questions. I got to go in about half an hour, so you'll forgive me if I don't have I have a ton of time, but let me grab some questions real fast in the next half hour or so. So Constellation Pegasus says, do you think Jesus said God's name out loud all the time? Would doing this get him killed sooner? Don't recall that specific charge against him. I don't think so. I think that by the Second Temple period, the explicit name of God was already a taboo. So I don't think he was saying it out loud. At least I don't think there's any evidence from the Gospels that he was saying it out loud. And again, if we take him to be an eccentric, but not otherwise pious Jewish person, I don't think that he would be saying it out loud. Just a couple of super stickers. Thanks so much for the super stickers. Thank you guys. You can always support the channel with a super sticker. Nexus Gamering, thank you. Yeah. I'm glad you've discovered the channel and I hope you continue to find it rewarding. What do you think about Neith being called a demiurge by scholars in Egyptian religion? I don't know. I don't know enough about, well, what I do know about Egyptian religion is I find it to be what we should, in the same way that we have lots of different religions at work in the ancient Near East. I think that we have to think about Egyptian religion as in some ways lots of different religions. I think the best analog is something like Hinduism. Like Hinduism isn't really one religion. It's a lot of sub-religions sort of under the umbrella of what we call Hinduism. And I think that Egyptian religion is a bit the same. But I don't know that Neith specifically is a demiurge, but I have to go look more at the specific mythological text. And I think this is a part of it too, is that I think it's always a question of, is this deity functioning as X in this text? And I had to go look at the specific text to see, is there a demiurge kind of element in there, but I'm not sure. Do something on Sumerian cuneiform. I mean, I'm not a Assyriologist. I do want to reach out to Professor Irving Finkel and have him on the channel at some point. So maybe we can talk about Sumerian cuneiform then. But I have been doing an ongoing series. Another series I've been doing is on the earliest libraries in the world, and we'll be talking a lot about cuneiform and specifically Sumerian cuneiform there. More late antiquity Egypt, please. Yeah, sure. Definitely want to do more on that. There's a great book out called The Last Pagan Generation that I want to talk about. And I kind of want to talk about the end of Egyptian paganism and what did it look like at the very end. what was it like being out there, way out in, what's the name of that temple? The Phila temple. What was it like being the last priests of the Osiris cult out there at the very end? So it'd be curious to see. And also what's interesting is that one of the things I learned in Egypt is that old habits die hard, and that the Egyptians still have funerary cult. For instance, in the rest of the Islamic world, burials simply happen below ground. They bury people in the earth. But in the Egyptian context, they still build kind of mastaba-like structures, and they go into them, and the dead are buried in there. And so they go into them, and it's a mortuary cult. And so that's a place where, like I said, old habits die hard, and that's a place where the funerary cult of the ancient Egyptian paganism or whatever survives into Islam and Christianity. So that's a cool thing that has survived. That kind of makes me happy. Not a question, but my Call of Cthulhu players may never forgive you for the added horror I was able to add to Lilith. Well, I'm glad. I'm happy to be able to contribute to any role-playing games. What's the right word? Verisimilitude or something? I don't know. So I really love the intersection of esotericism and in video games and role-playing games, and especially role-playing games. I don't know a lot about video games these days, but I'm really interested in especially role-playing games incorporating elements of Western esotericism into their mechanics, because I do think that I was talking about this to my good friend Matt, who's also the book conservator that I use, and one of the things he pointed out was that the mechanics in Dungeons and Dragons will tell you how they never tell you how magical objects get made. They're magical objects, and making them is expensive, but it never the mechanics of how you make an object magical, or I think about quasi magical devices like in Magic the Gathering. But I'd be curious to talk to folks in the role playing world about adding some degree of I know verisimilitude is not quite the right word, but some historical thickness. We all like thickness, right? We like thickness, THICC, like to add some thickness to the mechanics of role playing games, which is the thing that I like to do. So, all right. Wow, thank you for this tremendous super thanks. You mentioned earlier the importance of understanding text and ways of making sense without critiquing them. While understanding is worthwhile in and of itself, and it is necessary for critique, whose place is it to critique? Applied ethics or cultural criticism? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to do cultural criticism. I'm happy to do it. I'm just not going to do it here, right? The mandate of this channel, as far as I have mandated it, is to do the understanding side of things. If I wanted to do cultural critique, I would probably do it somewhere else, because what so often happens on YouTube is that there is a person who's doing historical stuff, and then they're doing historical stuff and then interjecting into it some unstated critical agenda. Now, if you state your critical agenda and you make it clear that this is the historical part and this is the critical agenda part, great. And even I don't totally like that often, but I find that what ends up happening is there is a historical part and there's a critical part, and they get interwoven in a way that the viewer isn't aware when they're doing that. And I find it to be, what's the right word? I find it to be misleading. I find it to be even dangerous, because if you're going to do the cultural critique piece, fine, but you have to make sure that when you're doing that, at that point, you're now editorializing. And when you've smuggled your editorializing into your history, you've really done some kind of, you muddied the water in a way that I think for a person that doesn't have a basic understanding of the material can really derail them. And so I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Now, again, am I biased? Of course I'm biased, right? But I name my biases as clear as I can. And when I do editorialize, I name it. And so I think that's the distinction that makes a difference is the muddied interpolizing of editorial content into historical content in a way that I think can be very confusing to people. So now again, I come out of like the Frankfurt School. Like my one of my dissertation advisors was taught by Habermas, who was taught by like Adorno and those guys. Like I trust me, I come out of the world of cultural critique. I am happy to do um, cultural critique or whatever. Um, uh, but I'm not going to do it on my channel. I'm not going to do it on this channel. I'm not going to do this channel. And the reason why is because I've seen it done so badly in a way that smuggles in stuff that I find to be intellectually, it's manipulative. And if you don't know that you're doing it, then it's dangerous. It's dangerous. And so I just don't want to do that. I don't do that. I think that I have lots of things to say about cultural criticism. I have lots of things to say about metaphysical criticism, right? When I go to a Gnostic text, I have metaphysical critiques of this text. When I go to Plotinus or Aristotle, I have metaphysical critiques, right? Not just cultural ones, metaphysical ones, philosophical ones. But it's not my place to do that editorializing on my channel. Now, this is an educational channel, and any editorializing I want to flag, and then maybe I'll make another channel one day where I do more specifically critical stuff, but I don't want to do that on this channel. So I hope that makes sense. So read Pratchett's Feet of Clay, and if so, did you like it? I have not read it. I have a terrible time reading fiction. I'm really bad at reading fiction. I need to get better at it. There's a lot of famous fiction that I've never read. Like I've never read The Secret History. like people are like, yeah, you're kind of like dark academia. And I'm like, I've never read the foundational gospel of dark academia. So it's supposed to be a fantastic book, but I've never read it. I'm still working my way through Moby Dick after many years. I'm not very good at reading fiction, and I need to get better at it because I'm really losing out. It's my loss really. And so I haven't read it, but I'll put it on the list and see if I like it, and I'll let you know if I end up reading it. Um, um, all right, I'm going to scroll to the bottom and try to work my way back up. But again, if I don't get to your question, I do apologize. But I get to the bottom of the chat. I can just click one button and do it. There we go. Turns out technology is a great thing. Would you be willing to do another tour? I didn't find out about the New England tour until it was too late. Yes, we're going to be doing a lot of new tours. In fact, that's one of the main things that's about to change on the channel is that I'm going to be doing a lot more in-person learning. So if you're interested in in-person learning, that is the thing that is coming that I'm going to be doing a lot more of in the future. And also, if you missed out on the New England tour, we have 2 seats that just opened back up. So two folks had to cancel, unfortunately. And if you want to get on the New England tour, please reach out to me and let me know because we do have 2 spots open now. So please do let me know if you want that. But yes, lots of more in-person learning is a thing that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing. Might we ever expect to see a video on St. Martin or Martinism in general? Probably not anytime soon because it's such a modern movement. This channel really focuses on stuff that's basically pre-1750. And I know that comes right up to the line of like the development of Freemasonry and Martinism and other stuff. But there's so much to cover and prior to that. And there's so much other material out there on esotericism since 1750 that I feel like what I really want to focus on is on the stuff that is really inaccessible. So it's not to say that I won't. And I've learned, and also I don't know a lot about Martinism. And so it's the kind of thing that I have to do a lot more education on, but mostly we'll continue focusing on material prior to about 1750. All right. Let's see here. So if I'm scrolling up just to grab any questions that jump out at me. Someone asked, "What do I mean by what I said? What do I mean by cultural critique?" Um, It's a good question. Do I know of any comprehensive esoteric texts directly related to mental health predating Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy? It's a great question. This is actually this is an episode I really want to do. I want to do a whole episode on melancholy, because melancholy and esotericism are connected, because they're connected to Saturn astrologically, and all of that's wrapped up together. Kabbalah is also connected to Saturn, and there's the temperament of is represented by melancholy, and one of the first times we see some of the magic squares from Agrippa is in Albert Durer's depiction of melancholy. So the short answer is no. I don't know if nothing directly jumps out to me, but one of the things that I want to do is a sort of an esoteric history of melancholy, because I do think that that's a super fascinating topic. And yeah, the anatomy of melancholy would obviously would feature prominently in that study. So yeah, look for a an upcoming episode on esotericism and melancholy. All right. Yeah, will you ever be doing this in Europe? Yes. The short answer is yes. I have 5 tours in my head in Europe. Yeah, at least 5 tours. There's a Paris magic one. There's an Italian hermeticism one that I might try to co-do with Dr. Angela Puca. There's a Central European alchemy one. There's a Spanish Kabbalah one. Yeah, I'm definitely coming to Europe to do education. So absolutely, that is definitely on the agenda. Now, when I don't know, but hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. All right. Let me scroll up and get a couple more. Let me see what time it is. Okay, good. I got about 15 more minutes. Someone asked about what is cultural critique. Cultural critique is where you actually not only lay out the material analytically, but also you engage in a critique of it. And a critique of it just simply means analyzing the truth claims of analyzing text, not just descriptively, but also proscriptively. Is this true? Right. So when Plotinus says that the fundamental structure of the universe or cosmos or reality is emanatory, is that true? And why? What cultural conditions, economic conditions, historical conditions led to the kind of person like Plotinus existing at all? Right? Like, what do you have to be in Roman society to have the leisure time to sit down and write books? Or how close do you have to be to power to be able to try to make a version of Plato's Callipolis, the Republic, in Tuscany or whatever? So again, it's looking at the text not only analytically but also looking at them critically, and I think that's important. And I'm more than happy to do it. I just don't want to do it here, like I said, because I think that I think when you mix the history with the critique, you do really bad. I think you end up doing bad versions of both, frankly. Um, the most egregious version of that to me is Foucault. I find that Foucault, um, um, his genealogical technique is interpolating value judgments into history in a certain kind of way, and I find that. And now again, can you not do that? I don't know, but I find that he does it in a way that I don't appreciate, and the people that ape him are all the more worse. All the more worse. Um, um, and again, I'd like to see this as if it's true. The folks have this experience themselves. I mean, have folks noticed this too on like History Tube? It seems like I'll give every time I'll if I don't know something about a historical event, almost always I'll go YouTube it and look it up, and within 10 minutes, 5 minutes of most history stuff, there's some political agenda in there, whether it's left wing or right. Most often, it's a right wing agenda in my experience. Um, but and it's almost always unstated, and I'm like, hold on, like what is this? I don't know. I don't. It's just like this sort of active interpolation of critique into history. I find to be um, not active critique, an unconscious interpolation. I'm like, if you're doing it, fine. Like, be like, this is a I don't know anarchist channel, and we do anarchist history, as opposed to I'm an objective historian. I'm like, come on, that's not a real thing. You're not a fairy. Just don't pretend. But also, your biases are like actually you need to name them because we need to be disciplined about our biases. It's one of the most important things we can be as people interested in history. But I find that it's really undisciplined in that way. So I don't know. I don't know if other folks have noticed this um, or it's been a problem for other people, but I find it to be pretty pervasive and pretty unfortunate. Excuse me. What's your understanding of the relationship between conjuring, stage magic, and esoterica? For instance, the discovery of witchcraft by Reginald Scott. This is a great question, and Reginald Scott's is a great example of how he wants to explain some degree of witchcraft with um, stage magic. And of course, famously, Aleister Crowley would change the spelling of magic to reflect the difference between stage magic and the practice of magic as he understood it, as the transformation of reality in accordance to will, which is a sufficiently vague definition of magic as to encompass basically anything. I've never found, the philosopher in me has always looked at that definition going, huh? Like, that's not a very good definition of anything. Everything is that. And if everything is that, then why even, yeah. At any rate, this is a good question because, one of the many things that we might call thaumaturgists, people who can engage in miracle working, they want to distinguish from what they're doing from stage magic, because what stage magic is manipulation of the senses, right? You manipulate the senses. I do something over here, then smuggle the card over here, and they don't want to say they're doing that because that's inherently trickery, and that trickery is associated with the devil, by the way. I mean, demonic magic is almost always trickery. And this is a sort of a horseshoe of esotericism, is that the thaumaturgists want to claim, the magi want to claim that they're really doing magic, right? And they're not doing stagecraft because it's illusory, and it's illusory in the same way that demonic magic is. So there is a kind of horseshoe there that is worth exploring. And that, Reginald Scott basically tried to argue that most of what passes for witchcraft is in fact stagecraft. But yeah, that's another book I need to cover, is the discovery of witchcraft. I still haven't got around to covering it yet. But it's a great question though. But the main thing is, right, is that it's the desperate desire on the part of thaumaturgists to separate themselves off from conjuring conjurers. And again, conjurers should be separated from cozeners, because conjurers do stage magic, but they're tricking you. Cozeners trick you and you don't know you're being tricked. They're con men. And of course, esotericism doesn't have any con men in it at all. Esotericism has never had a problem with con men, ever. All right. Let's see some other ones real fast before I have to go. And someone mentioned Houdini. I really like Houdini so much. He's one of my favorite characters in the 20th century history. And speaking of con men, I like Houdini mostly because he used his powers for good. He took his knowledge of magic and he used it to like reveal all these terrible con people, preying on the hopes and dreams of their dead loved ones. If I could go back in time and save one lost text, what would it be? Oh my goodness. All of Aristotle's Poetics. Is that the one? No, it's not the one. There's so many. What is the one text I want to save? It's not one text, but it's one writer. I wish we could have some of the works of Chrysippus. Chrysippus is, he basically pioneered Stoicism, Stoic physics, metaphysics, Stoic logic. He invented propositional logic. 2,000 years before Frege. Um, I'd love to have collected the works of Chrysippus. I would love to have seen them survive. I don't know if I'm going to live and die on that answer, but I would love to the works of Chrysippus to have survived. It's a pity we lost them. And maybe we'll get fragments of them once we can finally unroll some of those rolls in Herculaneum. Although it is an Epicurean library. Epicureans. Stoics for life. But maybe we'll discover some Chrysippus. But I think Chrysippus is one of the people I'd love to have seen have survived. Have I done an episode on Shabbatai Tzvi? I've not done an episode on Shabbatai Tzvi. I've done a couple of episodes on Nathan of Gaza, because in many ways Shabbatai Tzvi himself is fascinating, but he's a story, right? Like Shabbatai didn't write very much, or really anything hardly, and so Shabbatai himself as a literary character is not terribly interesting. He's interesting as a person, sure, and there needs to be a movie about him. But really, who I'm really fascinated with is Nathan of Gaza, his Paul, his wingman. He's like theological wingman, because I think that Nathan of Gaza is the real genius behind the Shabbatian heresy. And so I've done some episodes on Nathan of Gaza, on the Derush Tanaim, his book on the dragons. Some new stuff by Nathan of Gaza is being published now, and so I'd like to go back. It's all in Hebrew though, and that Hebrew is tough. So I'd like to go back and do some stuff on Nathan of Gaza, but I haven't done one on Shabtai Tzvi, because he's intellectually not that interesting. He's historically very interesting, but intellectually not interesting. But there's a great episode about Shabtai Tzvi on Religion for Breakfast if you want a specific episode on Shabtai Tzvi. All right. It's a great question. Do you prefer people support you on Patreon or YouTube? Also, while an atheist, I really enjoy your work as a purely historical education on some of the beginnings of science as we know it today. Thank you. In general, Patreon is better. Patreon is better. I know some people don't like Patreon. Like it charges sometimes it can charge like different fee structures in Europe and stuff. So sometimes people don't like Patreon as much in Europe, but Patreon's better. I get a better cut, I guess, than I do through YouTube memberships. And but a lot of people reached out to me and asked me if they could do a YouTube membership, and I didn't have it turned on. But I turned it on, and people seem to like doing it. But I appreciate the super thanks and the question. And yeah, I also appreciate, again, this channel, I think I want it to be equally home to practitioners and non-practitioners and believers and atheists. Because at the end of the day, again, esotericism is one of these places where it's had decisive impacts in history, often where we don't realize it. And one of them is in the history of technology and the history of science. And so this is a place where I want to highlight that stuff because, again, people say, oh, esotericism is not important. I'm like, well, if you think chemistry is important, then then you can't tell the story of chemistry without telling the story of alchemy. Not that we should understand alchemy purely as a proto-progenitor of chemistry, but certainly there is no history of chemistry without the history of alchemy. All right. I get a couple more questions, then I got to go, folks. But I'll be doing more live streams, so don't worry that we'll do. I know I wasn't doing a lot of live streams back in the fall, and that was because I was just like racing toward the finish line. That is this stupid milestone, but yeah, I wanted to start doing more live streams just so to look forward to those. All right, folks. Well, that said, make sure I got all the super things and everything. Yeah, I think I got all of them. Great. Um, well, that said, folks, I'm gonna get going. I gotta go. Any tips on beard care? Use whatever random conditioner your wife has. Yeah, I have some like beard oil that I use if I'm going out to like some fancy thing, or if it's really in the summer, in the wintertime, I should be using it because it's really dry. So I use some like beard oil that I got like 10 years ago, but I don't do as much as I should to my beard. Um, but folks, I'm gonna get going. I got some things I got to do this afternoon, and get my kids and all that stuff. But again, folks, just one last thank you. You know, we did it. We got to this. We got to a really crazy big milestone. It really blows my mind that this channel has gotten to 1 million subscribers, and it's all thanks to you guys. It's all thanks to y'all. You know, I couldn't do this without you guys. I'm just extremely grateful that I have the opportunity to do this. I'm looking forward to making new content. Like I said, the newest bit of content is going to be it's going to be the oldest book in the Americas. What is the oldest book produced in the Americas? And so, going to get into some cool 260-day Venusian calendrical stuff in the Mayan worldview or Mesoamerican worldview. And yeah, looking forward to doing that. Hopefully we'll have that up next week. I'll have that episode out next week, and then we'll be on the new schedule. So again, thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, for making all this possible. And I'll see you guys soon. Lots more to come in the future of esotericism. And I appreciate you guys so much. And you guys take care. And see you soon for the next episode. Bye.